A service of reflection for Good Friday at St Mary's Church in Clifton. Ukraine and the millions who've fled are not far from people's thoughts. The search for a safe haven all too familiar to Dr. Edith Ihima, a former asylum seeker from Nigeria. She's now training to be a vicar. She's horrified that others like her now face the prospect of a one-way ticket to Rwanda.
It will be re-traumatizing because this person is already in the vulnerable, feeling like the world is against you. And then again, it's like it's never ending.
But can you imagine yourself in that situation with your 3 girls?
It's difficult to imagine. It wasn't even easy being here for those number of years and all the things. So like I said, it's just, yeah, there are some things you lack words to explain.
Launching the government scheme yesterday, the Prime Minister took aim at lawyers like Stuart Luke.
We have such a formidable army of politically motivated lawyers who for years have made it their business to thwart removals and frustrate the government.
Mr Luke has spent the last 15 years representing asylum seekers. 70% of them have been granted leave to remain.
Are you a politically motivated lawyer?
My focus as a lawyer is to ensure that the rule of law is upheld. I do have concerns about moving very vulnerable asylum seekers halfway across the world for processing. It's unclear how they will be entitled to be represented, how they will be able to access services, and how they will be treated in a country which has not the best in terms of a human rights record.
More than 28,500 people crossed the Channel in small boats last year. The peak, though, was back in 2002, when numbers topped 84,000. But figures are still too high for the government, which hopes the prospect of being sent to Rwanda will act as a deterrent.
The truth is there are 80 million people displaced in the world at the moment. Not everybody can come to Britain, but we do want to play our part to help ensure that there is sanctuary available, entirely in line with our rich traditions in the UK.
The world turned upside down for Imran when he realised he was gay. Living in Pakistan, he felt persecuted and feared for his life. So he fled to the UK and was granted indefinite leave to remain. So what if he'd been sent to Rwanda instead?
I would feel very terrified, very isolated, very lonely.
What would you be terrified of?
Terrified about the circumstances in Rwanda because I don't know their culture, their society, and it's a strange place for me. So I won't be tolerated to go there.
You were granted asylum on the basis that you're gay and it would be unsafe to go back home to Pakistan. Do you feel it would be safe to be in Rwanda as a gay man?
I don't think so it will be safe because I've been told the people, LGBT, they're not safe.
Imran says he's finally happy. He no longer has to hide who he really is, but is worried that those that now follow in his footsteps won't get the same chance of a new and safe life.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to Craig McKinlay, who's the Conservative MP for South Thanet. His constituency lies along the Kent coastline, where tens of thousands of people have arrived in small boats. I asked him to explain why he's so supportive of the government scheme.
Well, I'm supportive of it because nothing else that we've been trying over the last few years has worked. We had 28,000 people making this irregular crossing by dinghy across the Channel last year. We've got 5,000 thus far this year, which is double where we were last year, which was a record year. So we have to say that our immigration policy and our border policy is not working.
Well, Australia's programme actually only resettled 239 people at a cost of £1.9 million per person. Should we be willing to pay that kind of money for something that's not very effective?
I think you're trying to turn this on its head. Because there's low numbers, there's always a fixed cost for these facilities. And when you've got low numbers, which is actually what you're after at the end of the day, then of course the cost per head looks very expensive. But what is the real cost per saving of those who've been deterred from making these crossings? Because let's not forget, we are spending £4.7 million a day on hotels. That's £1.5 billion per year. I'm a Kent MP. That is about 50% more than the entire budget of Kent County Council, just to put that into context.
So this policy is actually red meat for your constituents 3 weeks ahead of a local election, is it?
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, what is populism? Populism is voting for things that you want to vote for, and you get an MP that goes along with that or stands on that ticket. If that's populism, then I'm sorry, I call it democracy. This is what people wanted, they voted for, they've asked for, and we're delivering upon.
Should this policy apply to anyone who arrives illegally into the UK?
It will primarily, in my view, and I think they're the indications coming out, that it will be for lone males, of which we often see 80, 85, 90% of those coming over on the irregular dinghy route are.
If a lone male arrives from Ukraine illegally into this country, should they be sent to Rwanda as a point of principle?
Well, there's a wholly different scheme for Ukrainians at this time, and so it should be. But I can't see any circumstance where a lone Ukrainian man will be coming to the UK and being taken off to Rwanda. I would imagine most able young Ukrainian men are doing the right thing and fighting Russia at the moment.
OK. What about the concerns around human rights? You've got LGBT groups saying Rwanda is not the place to be putting somebody who's of an LGBT persuasion. What is your response to that?
Well, this would have to be part of the initial triage when there is an irregular landing in the UK. I mean, I read that yesterday, that Rwanda has not got such a high level of LGBT plus respect that we have in the UK, and those type of rules and equalities. But I see nothing in their legislation that is actually anti. I think that is something that has come out of thin air as yet another excuse by those who, frankly, and they can have that view if they wish, who wish Britain to have completely open borders and anybody can come in any numbers at any time. If that is what they feel and wish, if it is, be brave enough and say it. We can have the debate.
OK, well, you've made yourself very clear. Craig McInlay, thank you very much for talking to us.